Greetings, friends around the world. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel. On February 11, 2013, Catholic Pontiff Pope Benedict XVI did something unprecedented in modern times. He announced that he was going to resign effective February 28, 2013. Now, he's the first pope to resign since Pope Gregory XII did so in 1415, nearly 600 years ago. Might the Pope's resignation fulfill any kind of prophecy? And might his resignation lead to fulfillment of prophecies related to the coming of the final Antichrist? Well, that's what we're going to deal with in this brief video today. I'd like to read some passages from Catholic prophecy, prophetic writings. This is from the book actually called Catholic Prophecy. Now, years ago, I wrote that these could apply to Pope Benedict XVI. So let me read this one. This is from nun Anne Catherine Emmerich, who is a stigmatic who died in the 1800s. This is what she did in around 1821. I saw what I believe to be nearly all the bishops of the world, but only a small number were perfectly sound. I also saw the Holy Father, which is a term Roman Catholics use for the Pope, God-fearing and prayerful. Nothing was to be desired in his appearance, but he was weakened by old age and much suffering. Well, at this particular time, of course, the pontiff is an older person, and he seems to be weakened by his age and some other things he's suffering from. Now, further, I'd like to read something that may be a bit more specific. Now, this came from the 19th century. This is from Helen Wallraff, who wrote or stated, "Someday a pope will flee from Rome in a company of only 4 cardinals, and they will come to Cologne." Now, Cologne happens to be a city in Germany, and the current pontiff was born in Germany. Now, he's not said that he's going to immediately go to Germany from his resignation. And other Catholic prophecies suggest when a pontiff flees, he's going to go somewhere else. But a year or two ago, I speculated that if Pope Benedict XVI actually were to leave and to go to Germany, to Cologne, Germany, he might fulfill this kind of prophecy. And we'll see over time if he ends up doing that. Now, on April 8th, 2012, I actually wrote an article. The title was, "Might Pope Benedict XVI Resign?" Because I was wondering if he might resign based on statements that he made, as well as various prophecies. Various Catholic prophecies suggest there could have a time coming where there will be more than one pope. Now, whether Pope Benedict will live long enough to fulfill those other prophecies, that I'm not going to try to speculate on. But I did find it interesting that there were prophecies that there could be more than one pope at the same time. A pope would flee, a pope would be old, a pope would be ill, and a pope may end up in Germany. And so those possibly have something to do with Pope Benedict XVI. Now, as far as the Pope himself goes, in my 2009 book called 2012 and the Rise of the Secret Sect, I wrote some things about Pope Benedict that I'd like to read right now. Quote, "I also want to make it clear that I do not believe that Pope Benedict XVI is the final prophesied Antichrist. However, Pope Benedict XVI has inadvertently pursued policies that are likely will allow for the rise of an antipope. This antipope, who may or may not be the next pontiff, may be the final Antichrist that the Bible warns about." This is from page 198 of this book for those of you who have it. "The Antichrist, along with the beast of Revelation, will change the current Catholic faith into a persecuting ecumenical form that many, including most non-Catholics, will sadly follow." So I made it clear years ago that I did not believe Pope Benedict XVI would be the final Antichrist. I didn't think he was. And I think his resignation announcement should prove it to some people, because some insisted to me that he was. But I went on record to say, no, he's not that person. But he may take steps that could allow this person to rise up. Now, lest any of this sounds like Catholic bashing, it needs to be clear that Catholic writers for a long time have warned that some kind of a schism might rise, and there may be an antipope, and this antipope could actually be the final Antichrist. Going back to Pope Gregory I, sometimes called Pope Gregory the Great, and this is, he died around 604, he said, "In those days near the end, an army of priests and 2/3 of Christians will join the schism." So the Pope was warning that Catholics would follow something that he didn't want them to follow. Now, getting back to Catholic prophecies, other Catholic prophecies about this, I'd like to read a couple of comments here along that line. This is from Evius de Pont. Many prophecies predict an antipope and the schism, and I just read one about the schism. Many predict war, bloodshed, persecution right in the Vatican. So this is something, again, that comes from Catholic sources. Now, what might any of this have to do with the Pope's resignation? Well, other than the fact that certain Catholic prophecies suggest that there could be more than one Pope at the end, there's some that suggest that an antipope is coming. Back in the 12th century, Catholic bishop from Ireland, Malachy, predicted with what some consider complete accuracy the remaining popes. He predicted 112 future popes from the 12th century to present. And actually, you can find it in books like this one. And let me read what at least one Catholic has written about it, about this particular prophecy, because this could be relevant today, because some people may find this of interest. It says just talking about the Malachy prophecies, each Pope is designated by a short motto. Rejected as spurious by some Catholic commentators, this prophecy has been accepted by many other scholars as legitimate, or excuse me, as genuine. In any case, it has given a fitting description of every Pope since the 16th century when it was found. Now, the prophecies came out in the 12th century, but it wasn't found until the 16th century, so a lot of people said, somebody just made this up because a bunch of predictions seem to be right. Well, actually, since the 16th century, many have come to pass. Now, I'd like to read some Catholic writers to their interpretation of these Malachy prophecies. The first is from priest Gaudentius Rossi in 1873. Quote, "According to St. Malachy, then, only 10 or at the most 11 popes remain to be in the future more or less legitimately elected. We say more or less legitimately elected because out of the future popes, it is feared that 1 or 2 will be unlawfully elected as antipopes." So back in the 1800s, Catholic writers said, look, we looked at the Malachy list, there's only like 11 people left, 11 popes, 1 or 2 of them are probably going to be an antipope. I'd like to read from a book written by Emmett Culligan, who is also a Catholic writer, and what he had to say about the Malachy list. He said, quote, "St. Malachy named all the popes from the year 1130 to the end of time. On St. Malachy's schedule, 1966 schedule, we will have 4 more popes to follow Paul. If you add them all up, it would be the next pope." Now, well, somebody might say, well, this is just some books that somebody wrote and who cares? I would like to comment or point out that this book was blessed by the Pope back in 1966. Pope Paul the Sixth blessed this particular book. So this is not just some spurious writer who just on his own just did something and didn't have anybody to concur with him. And there's another Catholic writer who just doesn't really care for the Catholic prophecies in Malachy, but here's what he said. According to the alleged predictions, only 2 popes remain after the present one, which was then John Paul II, and we've since had Pope Benedict XVI, ending with Petrus Romanus, Peter of Rome, who is to preside over the destruction of Rome and the end of the present age. Now, there are different people who've read these differently. Now, I'm going to show you, okay, this is the Malachy prophecy book. The second to last pontiff was Pope John Paul II, and he was called the labor of the sun. He happened to be born on the day of a solar eclipse. He was buried on the day of a solar eclipse, so some feel he fulfilled that. This particular prediction here is supposed to be to do with Pope Benedict XVI, but this last one I'd like to read. In the final persecution, of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock among tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and a dreadful judge will judge the people. Now, some believe that this means he's a good pope. Others believe this means he's a bad pope. But either way, it means that there's one pope left on the list. Now, some Catholics believe there will be other popes other than him. But the reality is, that's what the list says. Now, I'd like to read from another Catholic source about what some believe may happen. This is from Blessed Joachim, who died in 1202. Toward the end of the world, Antichrist will overthrow the Pope and usurp his see. So there's another prediction that this may happen. That is that the final one will be an antipope. Now I'm going to read from the book of Destiny, written by a Catholic priest. I'm going to read just a few excerpts from here, from page 319. It says, talking about the two-horned beast of Revelation 13, he says he may have two world powers subject to himself, but the added phrase seems to indicate he's an apostate bishop or cardinal, or he resembles one. The church, having fled Rome after the murder of the Pope, leaves the papal chair vacant. This false prophet usurps papal authority. He assumes spiritual authority and supremacy over the church. It would make him resemble the Bishop of Rome. He would be Pontificus Maximus, a title of pagan emperors. So we see, again, from Catholic sources, many are concerned that an anti-pope might rise up, or somebody who claims to be Catholic will rise up, affect their faith, and not be faithful. And I believe that's also consistent with biblical prophecy. Now, as far as Bible prophecy, I'd like to read a biblical prophecy about the Antichrist. If you have a Bible, you can turn to 1 John chapter 4. I'm going to start in verse 1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out in the world. By this you'll know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God. Verse 3, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard was coming. And this is important because when I was reading from the book of Destiny a moment ago, he was saying that, look, this guy is going to be the false prophet. And as you can see from what the Apostle John wrote, this false prophet is associated with the Antichrist. Now, we're living in the end times, and it's certainly possible that the next pope will be the final one. Well, you say, why? Ignoring Catholic writings, we're nearly finished with the 6,000 years that God has given humankind to rule itself. The idea that God has a 6,000-year plan for humankind to rule itself is an ancient one, and it comes from tradition, it says, from the prophet Elijah. In modern times, it's held by groups such as the Continuing Church of God, and it was also held by some in the Catholic Church in the 20th century. I'd like to come back and read from Emmett Culligan's book, again, the one that was blessed by Pope John VI, along this line. And he wrote, "It is the time when the seventh millennium comes to an end. It's the time when the seventh millennium will set in and will be the day of Sabbath in the plan of creation." Say, okay, what's this got to do with it? Well, let me continue on page 115. "Christians and Jews from the beginning of Christianity and before have taught that 6,000 years after the creation of Adam and Eve, the consummation will occur." Now, it may be from the creation of Adam and Eve, or it may be after they sinned and were put out of the Garden of Eden. But either way, the idea is that God has given humankind about 6,000 years to live on its own. Now, I'd like to read something from the Bishop of Leon named Irenaeus, who was a Catholic saint, and he also claimed to know Polycarp of Smyrna. Quote, "That apostasy which takes place will be during the 6,000 years. As many days the world was made, in so many thousand years it shall be concluded. For this reason, Scripture says, quote, "Thus the heaven and the earth were finished and all the adornment. And God brought to the conclusion upon the sixth day the work that he had made, and God rested the seventh day from all his work." This is the account of things formerly created. It's a prophecy of what's to come. For the day of the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 6 days he created things were completed. It is evident, therefore, that it will come to the end at the 6,000th year. Now, where does he get this idea? Well, there's a bunch of scriptures, such as Hebrews 4, but the other one I'd like to read here, because he alluded to it. This is from the book of 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. "But, beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord 1 day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is 1 day." Well, if you add up biblical chronology, who begat who and the reigns of the kings, and you add all of that up together, what you're going to find is that this 6,000 years will probably be up within the next decade or so, which is certainly possible to be during the time of the next pope. Now, I'm not saying the next pope has to be the final Antichrist or the antipope that Catholic prophecies warn about. But if you look at Catholic prophecies that say there's only one pope left, if you look at Catholic prophecies that say an antipope is coming, and you look at biblical prophecies that say about the 6,000-year plan, adding all those up suggests there is a possibility that the next person who becomes elected pontiff will betray the Church of Rome, pretend to be Catholic, and perhaps be the final Antichrist that the Bible warns about. Now, those of you who'd like more information on the 6,000-year plan can go to our website, www.cogwriter.com, and read the article, "Does God Have a 6,000-Year Plan?" There are also items there about Catholic prophecies, about the anti-popes. It's also, my books go into those in some depth. But we're getting closer to the time the 6,000 years ends, and thus the resignation of Pope Benedict seems to fit within a lot of prophecies. We are living in the last days, and steps leading to the fulfillment of those biblical prophecies are taking place right now. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel.